Gita? No.
Sorry?
Is this Gita? No. This is Kathopanishad. Now what is left to do? You have other things to do, or that everything is over in terms of the test?
For the first level, and then I'm doing there's a second level that's a week long in October.
October.
It gets me so that I can work in a clinical setting or a hospital setting.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, more options.
Very good. You left it at a peculiar place because of the particular construction of this bhashya. I had to do it that way. But we will finish it today, so it will all be righted. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvidnavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namo Bhagavate
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vaivasvataya Mrityave
Vaivasvataya Mrityave
Brahma Vidyacharyaya
Brahma Vidyacharya
Nachiketase cha.
Nachiketase cha.
Oh, very nice. Everyone knows this now. Ah, very good.
It started reading my text. I just wanted to turn it off. I'm sorry. Okay, now it's off. Sorry. Oh my gosh.
Can do all kinds of things.
You can.
Yeah. So, now come back to the end of the bhashya. We'll finish that and go into the middle where we stopped. Okay, so a little help if I'm on the correct. Yeah, I'm on the correct one. Okay. Yadacha evam kevala samanya vijnanatvat sarvatah yati iva yada विशेष विज्ञानस्थः स्वेन रूपेण स्थितः एव सन्मनादिगतिषु तद् उपाधिकत्वात् दूरं व्रजति इव सः च इहैव वर्तते. This is to talk about that first line. We are still on the first line, which is what? Asino दूरं व्रजति शयानो याति सर्वतः. So this Atma, as though goes everywhere, even though it's in one place. Sitting in one place, it goes everywhere. That is what is under discussion. The other one also we have seen. What is the other one? Sleeping, it goes everywhere. Sitting in one place, it goes far. Sleeping, it goes everywhere. I think that's the translation. Sitting in one place, it goes far from that place. And sleeping, it as though goes everywhere. And then the bhashya is constructed in such a way that it takes up the sleeping as though it goes everywhere first, and then it takes up this one last, and then the first, the last line it takes up first. So to not get confused, that's how I'm doing it, doing this, the last portion first. So asinaha, I explained sitting, present, pratyaya, shatru. Asinaha, asinaha, usually it is ana, but here it becomes ina. It's an exception to the rule. So, asinaha, id asaha, there is a sutra. So, Paninian Sutra, id asaha. So, for asaha, you put e, eat, so not a, ana. So, asinaha duram vrajati. So, how can this Atma, Adi Shankara explains, sitting in one place go very far? How is it possible? Because, as the Bhashya says, very beautifully put and very succinctly put, Kevala Samanya Vijnanatvat. Kevala Samanya Vijnanatvat means what? Only from the standpoint of the Samanya Vijnana. We saw the difference last time. Samanya Vijnana and Vishesha Vijnana. So it's consciousness that is general consciousness. What is general consciousness? I am, I know. That's what it is. Then it seems to be present everywhere. That consciousness can be witnessed. Wherever that consciousness is wherever anything is, consciousness is. The consciousness is in the subject, and if the subject goes really far, how? Sitting in one place, how the subject is looking at the crow sitting on the tree several feet away, correct? So that object is not far away from consciousness. In fact, the object is nothing but consciousness, correct? So that crow is consciousness, and the crow, the body of the crow becomes an object of consciousness for who? This Atma sitting over here, Asinaha. But that crow is flying very far and first was on the tree and then it took flight. And so, in other words, that consciousness which is the object and this consciousness which I think of as the subject, what is the difference between the two? No difference. Both are one and the same. In fact, the only difference is the object resolves in the subject does not resolve at all. That's the only difference. So then, the crow, if it had a human mind, would also say, I am sitting on this tree and this strange looking, also a biped like me, but wingless biped, is sitting far away, and this body is the object of, my sight. The crow can also say the same thing, correct? You see? So, Asinaha, sitting in one place, wherever the sight goes, the pramanas travel. This is something which is also reiterated in the Jyotir Brahmana, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and in the Dakshinamurti Stotra. The means of knowledge travel, the sense organs travel, correct? The mind also travels, that we have seen earlier, and everything travels. And so when the ears, eyes, nose become the, what is that, Toyota for the consciousness to travel, become the vahanas, the vehicle for consciousness to travel. The nose becomes a vehicle. Imagine the nose with 4 wheels and consciousness sitting in it and driving itself to various restaurants, because that's where all the smells come. And then the eyes become again, what is that? Little scooters for consciousness to go around in. The ears become airplanes for the consciousness to travel. So, where is this consciousness sitting? As it were, it is sitting with the possessor of the ears, correct? That's why the music is heard long before you can actually, objectify it. You can actually discern it. It's already heard. Even before you see something, you hear it. You hear the car coming and stopping, and you hear the door of the car being opened, and then you peek outside and then you say, okay, this is car. But the ears have already objectified it. So like this, so sitting in one place, meaning that consciousness upadhikatvat, because it is associated with a particular body mind sense complex, appears to be sitting in one place, and sitting in one place it seems to have a say over the whole universe. It can objectify everything, everywhere, even far away. And since consciousness cannot and does not travel, on its own, it needs little vehicles. And these pramanas, these means, these pancha pramanas, the 5 means of knowledge, become its little cars and scooters to go and see what is happening over there. So in that sense it travels, because the eyes have to travel very far to objectify the body of the crow, the nest of the crow, whatever there is. And then in second meaning of this is that whatever is sighted, whatever is heard, whatever is, becomes an object of the olfactory nerves, that is also consciousness. That's not away from consciousness. Because consciousness being all pervasive, there is no subject and object. The subject object is a myth. What is myth? Mithya in English, yes. Mithya in English is myth. That's all. It's mithya. It's this subject-object consciousness is on the from the standpoint of the upadhi. Upadhi means this shape and name and form of this flower is very different from the name, form of this body and of the eyes that are watching this flower and objectifying this flower from the standpoint of this body. This is a different thing. I objectify this. This is an object, I am the subject. So this too is consciousness. The only difference is it cannot protest. If I pinch it from, it cannot say, "Ow, stop. What is this? I have another identity. I'm not just your little teaching aid. I'm done with it. I want to end up on Bhagavan. That's my goal. I want to be one with Bhagavan. I don't want to be here, your teaching aid. But it's a good job, sacred teaching. Doesn't matter, I want to go. The only thing that separates me from this is that it does not protest. I can protest. It does not protest. Why? Because its Sukshma Sharira, it has one, but its Sukshma Sharira is not developed. It doesn't have Vak, it doesn't have thoughts, the Manaha, Adi. So therefore it cannot declare its existence, and neither can it protest whatever I do. I can twirl it around, I can juggle it, I can do whatever. It does not protest because the means for protesting, which is upadhi bheda, are not there. So that's the only difference. But this too is consciousness, because otherwise there is no non-duality. Advaita Hani will take place, because otherwise there is no non-duality. If we keep saying everything is separate, there is no separation. The object resolves into the subject. That which never resolves is just that one single thing that I want to know, I want to be, the fruit of which is given in the next mantra. Dhiro matva na shochati, is not subject to grief. So this grief nivritti, the removal of grief, is the reason why this oneness is sought after. Because wherever there is two-ness, three-ness, whatever it is, there is no, there is grief. Wherever there is absence of duality, there is no grief, no fear. So therefore, this is what we are heading to. But here, the paradoxy of this Atma, how it's sitting in one place, it appears to travel. See, in both ways. One is it employs, so to speak, as it were, the means of knowledge. Consciousness travels, as it were, through the means of knowledge. Audio, visually it travels, and then goes far away and catches hold of those very things and brings it back to the mind. So sitting in one place, it goes far, one meaning. Second meaning, whatever it goes and touches, however furthest it may be the furthest thing in the universe, but still it's not separate from consciousness. So it seems to go far because it is all pervasive. Sarva Vyapin, it's going to be said either in this verse or later. or we have already seen it. So Sarva Vyapi means it is all pervasive. It goes everywhere. Duram Vrajati, it goes everywhere, even though it is stationary, Achalaha, even though it is stationary by nature, it goes everywhere, it appears to go everywhere. Why? Because, one more reason he gives, because the mind, has the ability to objectify things which are very far. So you can sit here and think of, anything. You can think of Mount Everest. Why? Because it has shifted by 3 centimeters after Nepal earthquake. Then you think, okay, is that going to make a difference? How is this? So you have already reached the Himalayas, you've already reached there, correct? Because sitting here you are thinking about that. Third reason, this consciousness not going anywhere, first it utilizes what? The sense organs. That's not said here, but it's important to note. And then secondly, it utilizes also Mana Adi Padat, also the eyes, that's a Karanas, It uses all the Karanas that you have, Upakaranas, all the Karanas, and then it objectifies things that are far away. You can read about a news that is happening in Syria. What news will come out of Syria? Some more heads cut off, unfortunately. That's all the news, no other news. And so you can sit here and you're already gone to Syria, correct? Yeah. You can be sitting in the class and thinking what is happening in my house. Ahasino duram vrajati. You can sit in the class and wonder, did I lock the door or not today? Ahasino duram vrajati. This is what the whole thing is. So, mana adishu, because of the mind, etc., you can object the consciousness is motionless, but it uses the motion of other things it uses all the proxy waves, very crafty consciousness. It uses everything to give the appearance of motion when there is none. There is no motion, but it's the appearance of motion. And then in sleep it seems to go everywhere. Why? Because there is only Samanya Vijnana, we saw that. And even in the waking, when there is Vishesha Vijnana, it seems to travel far, because you can sit here and think of zebra, where in Tanzania, that's their home, You can think of zebra and you can keep on counting the stripes, white, black, white, black, white, black, and then you have already gone to Africa, you're no longer here, correct? Then of course after zebra you think of other animals, giraffe and other things, hyenas and all those, things. Some are predators, some are predated upon, and some are just simply predated, like dinosaurs, and they are not there. So you can think, why did I talk about dinosaur? Because it is also gone far. Where? In time. Both are important. In time it can go far back or far into the future. You can sit here and think of sci-fi, and then a day when the galaxies, 2 galaxies one eats up the other. That's going to happen in a few million light years away. What is that? The galaxy next to us, big one, bully galaxy called Andromeda is going to come. Andromeda is coming slowly, very slowly, don't worry, and it's going to come. And then when the galaxies look at each other, the rule is the small one gets eaten by the big one. Even here it's the same. Yad yatha iha tatha amutra. Same thing. If the same thing here, rule is the same as elsewhere. Big fish will eat the small fish. So sitting right here, I have gone to the black hole. Sitting right here, I have gone to the galaxy, the next galaxy. Duram vrajati. Like this. So this consciousness being everywhere is, using the mind and other karanas, appears to travel far, although it is motionless. And even seen from the standpoint of one body-mind-sense complex, sitting in one place, you can think of something miles away, and then you can say that, duram vrajati. So again, from the same body-mind-sense complex, when it objectifies something far away, same thing. it has objectified something far away with the help of the eyes or the ears. And then again, what is objectified is not separate from this, you see. So then there is that all pervasiveness which is being talked about. And then he says, kevala savanya vijnanat sarvatah yati iva means as though, so now, even in sleep it goes everywhere. Now in this particular jnana, vishesha vijnanat, विशेष विज्ञानस्थः स्वेन रूपेण स्थितः एव सन्मनादिगतिषु तद उपाधिकत्वात् दूरं व्रजति इव. He uses the word iva heavily, purposely, because this iva is very important. Iva means as though. So both, even in sleep, as though goes everywhere, and even in the waking state, Vishesha Vijnanastha, even in the waking state, even though it is motionless, it uses the mind, the eyes, etc., sense organs, we have to say that, it uses the mind and the sense organs to give the appearance, and those upadhis, to give the appearance of going far away. And then what Saha, and to clarify, he says that, this is here itself. It is just conditioned as it were by the mind and the senses, but it continues here. Here means where? Iha means asmin sharire. In this body it is right here. Even though it appears to be going everywhere, using the mind as a vehicle, using the eyes as a vehicle, but it stays here only. In this body alone it is. Poor thing. And then the question comes, if it is as though it's got a locked-in syndrome, it's this consciousness is locked in this body-mind-sense complex, and then how am I going to know it? This durvijnayatvam asti atmanah. For this atma, there is a condition called what? Difficulty in knowing it because of all these complications. And so therefore the next verse, arabhyate, the next verse is, begun. And what does it say? We can't go to the next verse because we have not finished the bhashya here. So let's go back here to talk about this, the second line. We have to go back here. Alright, so kastam madamadam devam madanyo jnatum arhati. Who is that person? Madamadam devam, who is that self-effulgent being, who is that person other than myself who knows this self-effulgent being, who is the self-effulgent being who is both joyful and sorrowful. That's the literal translation. And then joyful iva, we have to add sorrowful iva. Not really sorrowful. Mada amada means that even when one is crying, what is holding it up, the tears, is that limitless consciousness alone. So then that's a apekshika question. It's a rhetorical question. And then the answer is given, a very unique answer, even though there is no answer expected for this. Adi Shankara puts a question mark and changes it so to make it a question. And then he says that asmadadehe eva sukshma buddhehe panditasya suvigneyaha ayam atma. And he pats all of us on the back. Asmadadehe means people like us. For people like us alone. Asmadadehe eva. For people like us alone, who are we? Sukshma buddhehe. Sukshma buddhehe panditasya. Is that, what is that? Kartra karmanoho kriti. Where the panditasya is used as the sixth case is used to indicate the agent. So who is the agent of this knowledge? The knowledge of these opposites. The correct recipient, the correct agent of the knowledge of all these opposites, who is it? Asmadadehe, people like us, etc. Who are we? Sukshma buddhehe panditasya. Pandita here means the one who has all the qualifications. The one who is got the, if not the wisdom, the desire for the knowledge is there in whom is called Pandita. So Asmadadehe, you people like us, who are we? Prakrita Buddhi. No, we are not Prakrita Buddhayaha. What is Prakrita Buddhi? Yeah? Yeah, just as nature made. As nature made. No difference between animal and this. If you see these in the, there are some scientific experiments made. This child that was lost and got, raised by some animals or not, just, made it. Such children, when they have brought, children means when they became adults, they found them in the forest, they brought them and tried to make them wear clothes which they would tear off routinely, and then they made them use a fork and the spoon, and they didn't know how, and they would either cut themselves with a fork because they would just prick themselves, they didn't know what to do with it, or they would throw it at anybody who came in, and they were impossible to rehabilitate, impossible. And they were very feral, wild. They just bit everybody that came into the room. I mean, imagine, they've been in the forest whole life, and then suddenly now they're doing experiments on them and taking their blood test and putting them in a lab with all these, what are those called? Those fluorescent lights. They went crazy, and they could never be rehabilitated. Forget teaching how to talk. This is Prakrita Buddhi. Whatever they felt like doing, they would do immediately. That's what it was. If they felt like kicking somebody, kick. Biting somebody, bite. Eating something, eat whatever is at hand, And one case, that lady came to this to take the blood test, and the being was hungry and ate the wallet of the lady. That's how. Whatever you feel like, you eat. Whatever you do, This is what is called Prakrita Buddhi. Prakrita means just bestial. At best you can describe it as bestial. And here Sukshma Buddhi means the one whose Buddhi has been clarified. Like even the butter, clarified butter, what is it called? Ghee. Like even the ghee, when you put the butter on the fire, not directly, of course in a container, when you turn the flame on, you know what happens? What happens? It melts, but it makes a horrible noise. Yeah, horrible noise it makes, and it gives a horrible smell also. This is the impurities burning off. Yeah, but you have to be persistent. You shouldn't feel sorry for the butter and turn it down. You have to just keep applying the heat, and then after that it becomes all quiet and clear. Correct? This is Sukshma Buddhi, a Buddhi that has undergone the heat of austerities, tapas, the heat of self-discipline, the heat of shama, dhamma, uparati, titiksha, shraddha, samadhanam, the heat of going to classes, having a teacher, all these things. The Buddhi that has survived all this is the clear Buddhi, free of ragadveshas. It is called Sukshma Buddhehe. So here Adi Shankara is giving all the people that study this Bhashya a little boost, a compliment, that we are all this Sukshma Buddhi. We are the ones ready to know who is this, funny Atma that goes everywhere while sleeping and goes far while sitting. Who is this? Who else will know other than myself? Kastam madamadan devam madanyaha means other than me. It's a pun on that mad, madanyaha jnatum arhati. And so he says, indeed this is right. So people like us, and he uses the plural because he doesn't use the singular. It's not like I'm better than you. Adi Shankara doesn't say I am the one ready to know it, even though the Upanishad uses the word singular, he uses the plural. Asmadadehe eva prakrita, what is that? Sukshma buddhehe. And then one more adjective he uses. What's that other word? Sukshma buddhehe. And one more thing, panditasya. So this is for the people who are, committed to this knowledge. The one who is committed alone is the pandita. So Panditasya Asmadadehe Panditasya, and then what? Sthiti Gati Nitya Anitya Anitya Anityadi Viruddha Aneka Dharma Upadhikatvat Viruddha Dharmavatvat Vishwarupah Iva Chintamani Iva Abhabhasate. Ataha Durvigneyatvam Darshayati Kastam Madanyo Jnatum Arhati iti. So here, by this last line, what is the purport of this reflexive question or rhetorical question? Adi Shankara says, Durvigneyatvam Darshayati. It shows the difficulty in knowing the Upanishad, is showing the difficulty in knowing the Atma, by this sentence. And then, so what is the thing, what is the difficulty here? Because it is sthiti, it is stationary, and it has gati, it has movement, it has nityatvam. What is that nityatvam? Permanence and then impermanence. Of course, one is mithya and one is satyam, but that's what it has. And then like this viruddha dharma, so having these different opposite attributes, oppositional attributes, viruddha dharmatvat, and then what? Aneka dharma upadhikatvat, viruddha dharma viruddha dharma vat Vishwarupah Iva Avabhasate. Viruddha Dharmavan and Viruddha Dharmavatvat Vishwarupavat Avabhasate. And so, because of this, it looks like it has Vishwarupa. What is Vishwarupa? Vishwarupa means it's everything all at once. How can you say what is Atma? It's impossible to objectify ityartha. It is impossible to objectify, that is the meaning. And so it appears like Vishwarupa. Vishwarupa means, how to say this? It's like everything all at once. A bunch of contradictory factors. Sthiti, Gati, Nitya, Anitya, one dharma, two dharmas, three dharmas, many dharmas, so many upadhis, so little time. And this Atma, how are you going to know? And you cannot know it as an object. So you have to be someone whose buddhi is prepared to know this object. Otherwise it becomes very difficult to know. And this difficulty is given to show, this verse is given to show these difficulties. And then in this, the added problem is what? This viruddha dharmavat avabhasate. Like Vishwarupa, like so many simultaneously contradictory, attributes. And then he says, like even what? Chintamani. Chintamani here means crystal ball. In the crystal ball, when you gaze, you can start, if you are a, what is that called? Clairvoyant. Sukshma buddhi, in that particular example, that is the Sukshma buddhi. If you are a clairvoyant, you can gaze into the crystal ball, and what do you see? You see certain things, correct? And you can see all kinds of things. And you see inside the crystal ball, 1 minute the sun is shining, and then in another place, in the same ball, rain is coming. 1 minute the person is happy, screaming with joy. The other minute the person is completely crying with happiness, sorrow. And so like this, all these opposite things you can see in the crystal ball. And this crystal ball becomes an example, just like the clairvoyant sees into the crystal ball with the help of their Sukshma buddhi. Similarly, to look into this Atma which is clear. That's why you can put all the things on the crystal ball, because the crystal ball is not projecting anything. You are seeing things in the crystal ball. That's why Chintamani here should not be translated as the philosopher's stone. It is a crystal ball. The crystal is free from all upadhis, so it becomes a sitting duck for any upadhi all the time. So you can put yellow cloth behind it, you see the crystal as yellow. Then you put orange, it becomes orange. Then you put green, it becomes green. And then when you take away the green cloth, you see the crystal for what it is, which is what? Colorless, free of all attributes. And if you hold it in the sun, you see the 7 colors coming out of it. So that means what? itself colorless, upholds all the colors, and there is not really a contradiction in this. So here too, the Atma is like this crystal ball, which on which you can project anything. If you are clairvoyant, you can see things in it. Similarly, if you are a Sukshma Buddhi, you can see that this Atma is nothing but that, attributeless, formless, on which all forms are as it were superimposed, all movement as it were is superimposed on that one thing. Okay? And so, that is the whole idea. Now we chant the next one. अशरीरं शरीरेषु अनवस्थेषु अवस्थितम् अनवस्थेष्वस्थितम् अनवस्थेष्वस्थितम् महान्तं विभुमात्मानं मत्वा धीरो न शोचति. Yeah. Continuing on the same tenor, this one also, tad vijnanacha shokatatyayah iti api darshayati. So what happens as a result of knowledge is shown here. What do I get out of this? Because if I'm going to sit down and put my mind into all this, how the thing is one place and going all over the place, and how it uses the mind like its own little Chevrolet car and goes everywhere, all these things, if I'm going to put my mind on this, I want to know what am I going to get. Nobody does anything without a purpose, and Adi Shankara says in the 4th chapter Bhashya, I think, that without a purpose, even a manda, even someone who is developmentally challenged, will not do anything without asking what am I going to get out of this. Mandopi karmani na pravartate prayojanam anuddishya, without knowing the purpose. So here, what is the purpose? I'm breaking my head trying to understand how it's not an object and how it is neither the subject nor the object, doesn't go anywhere, appears to go everywhere. What is this? So I should be, what am I going to get out of knowing this? It seems so far removed. Duram vrajati, this knowledge. So I should get something. What is that? And Adi Shankara reminds that as it is shoka nivritti. Vedanta is all about bhaya nivritti, shoka nivritti, the removal of fear and sorrow, which are two salient, poignant emotions which drive samsara crazy, If not samsara may not be driven crazy, but those who are in samsara, who are they? Samsarins, they are crazy. They become crazy because of these twin, emotions, fear and sorrow. So if you see in different places, the rationale of bhaya nivritti is given, or the rationale of shoka nivritti is given. So usually shoka, because that is something most, immediately felt. And so here he reminds us that the reason why we are on this yo-yo, journey, up and down, all around, is it going, is it coming, is it here, is it there, where is it appearing to go and not appearing to go, what is this? And yet it's in this body, but it's everywhere. How to understand all this? And also, because it was said that it is not going anywhere, it's very much in this body, he concluded. But then, if it's in this body, then that means it's not in that body. Then obviously the Atma, there is some problem. So for these reasons, the next verse is clarifying everything. Ashariram, essentially bodiless. Yeah. From its own standpoint, it has not a body. It has no body. It's not that it is a nobody. It has no body. Okay? Ashariram, where amidst all the things that are embodied, it itself has no body. In the midst of so many bodies, it is, disembodied. Anavastheshu avasthitam. In all the things that are, anavastha means what? Moving. This one is not moving. So stationary. How is that possible, It seems to be not in one place, and it seems to be not in one thing, yet at the same time, it has the ability to populate all the bodies and go everywhere. Without in the midst of every anavastha also means that which comes to an end. So that which is unchanging in the midst of all the changelings. So how is this possible? This is the whole idea. Ashariram sharireshu. Bodiless in the midst of all bodies. And limitless in the midst of everything finite. Changeless in the face of everything changing. Staying in one place in the face of everything, going everywhere, in all movement. And what is this? We know what it is not, because we know that it doesn't have a body. We know that it is permanent in the midst of all changing things. But what is it really? Mahan, great. Mahantam is the second case, accusative case. Mahan, Mahat. Mahat, Mahan. Mahantav, Mahantah, Mahantam. Like that it is the second case. And so, it is Mahan. Mahan means what? Great. Like Mahan plus Atma. Mahatma. You can't say Mahanatma or Mahadatma. You can't say, but that because of the compound that the goes away, and Maha plus Atma, Mahatma. Great. Okay, that's great, but how great is it? That question does arise, doesn't it? There is a akanksha. He's going to talk about that later. There's an expectancy that when I'm talking of greatness, then that greatness has to have a certain, limit. How great? Compared to what is it great? And what is the limit of its greatness? That's why the word Mahan is followed by the word Vibhu. Vividham bhavati iti vibhuhu. And that which is Vibhu means all pervasive. Vibhu means all pervasive, everywhere. One who goes everywhere, all pervasive. Vividham bhavati. Sarva vyapi. Because when you say great, it always means that the word great is always relative, correct? So therefore, to give that absolute connotation, here it is talked about as what? Vibhu, all pervasive, and that sort of qualifies the word great with a kind of it seals it as to be used in the sense of the absolute. So Mahantam Vibhum Atmanam. Who is this? Atmanam, myself. Knowing myself in this manner, this is a Mahavakya. Knowing myself in this manner. Aham ayam iti. And knowing that this is nothing but me. Matva, Jnatva. Matva means considering, but here it should be seen as knowing. Matva, from man to think or to consider. It's not that I think I am great. I am not thinking or considering myself to be this great Atma. I am knowing myself to be this great Atma. Mahantam Vibhum Atmanam Jnatva. Who is this Dhiraha? The one who was described as Sukshma Buddhihi Panditaha in the last, Bhashya. So the one who has a prepared mind, the one who has Buddhi, Dhiraha is not the one. You mean other people don't have Buddhi? They do, but they don't use it. So the one who has Buddhi means the one who is using the Buddhi for this purpose. Mahantam Vibhum Atmanam Jnatva Matva Dhiraha Na Shochati. There is no Shoka Apattihi. There is no sorrow, in the sense that there is, the person knows that when a difficult or a challenging situation comes, that I am not this particular thing. That identification with the Atma is so strong that the body, the mind, etc. is not, even if it's afflicted, it is not coming into play in a kind of with an emotional twist or turn and making things difficult for the person. So that is not there. The ahankara is totally one with the Atma, one with this vision, so much so that it does not, it does not own up things that don't belong to it. In fact, sorrow is because of wrongly taking things that don't belong to oneself. That is sorrow. No other sorrow really. Sorrow means that I just take everything personally. This is what sorrow is. Because everything that, somebody said something. Okay, let them say, no, why did they say that? And why did they say that to me? They should have said that to someone else. Why me? This is the whole thing. That is personalizing some situation. Or alternatively, sometimes, a person looks at the news and gets depressed. Oh, so many killings, so many things happening in so many places. Oh no, one more thing happened. Oh, so much injustice. When is it all going to end? So much police brutality. Somebody is being killed by the police. So many guns. Why do we have them? These, and then the person gets on a kind of a outrage. And here again, it is not seeing the truth of this universe as, Ishvara. That's the whole problem. If the universe is looked upon as Ishvara, these things will bother one naturally. And if you can do something about it, do it. But if somebody is beheading 50 people at once, you can't just go and do something immediately. You can't go there and tell them, look, this what you're doing is absolutely horrifying. Stop it. They're not going to stop it. If somebody tries to tell, that will be their last words. They're not going to stop it. No, but what is happening is very bad. Agreed. But this is not correct. Agreed. But we have to do something. Agreed. But what to do? We find out what to do. Well, right now nothing can be done. Okay, sit and pray, So you intervene in a way it is possible, and if it's not possible to intervene, that doership has to be somehow resolved through some other means. Write a letter, pray, do something until you can intervene. It's not that instead of intervention I'm doing it, because right now I can't intervene. When I can, I will, in any which way that I can, but right now this is not an option open to me. So what can I do? I do the best I can. So this is what the whole thing is. And so therefore, here the same thing is iterated, that the sorrow comes into play because of personalizing things in the Jagat. Personalizing in two ways. When I say this is mine, give me that, it's mine. And then what happens? There is fear of it going away. And when it goes away, there is sorrow. This is very, personalizing immediately. And that's why there is a beautiful story of this. I think I have shared it here. What is that? That Zen monk. The student gives a present. A bone china teacup. I have told this story. Yeah. Bone china, so called because it is subject to osteoporosis. Very thin. It's like made of paper. And he buys this cup and he says, "Master, it is for your tea." And the master looks at it and he says, "Oh, but it's broken." And the student gets very upset. "No, where? Show me. It's not broken. Look, it's not broken." And the master doesn't even take it back or doesn't even look. He says, "I am sure that it is broken." And again the student looks, no, master, it's not broken. There's not even a crack. Student takes the what is that? The big glasses, the magnifying glass from the master's table and looks at it. Not a single crack. Says, "Master, no, you are the one that's mistaken. It is not broken." And the master again says, "It is broken, Eva. It is indeed it is broken." So at this time the student says, "Okay, maybe this is an instruction." After a lot of argument with the teacher, he says, "Maybe I have to learn something from this. What is it that I have to learn? To see the impermanence in the permanent. Anavastheshu avasthita." So, you see everything as impermanent when you know the permanent as yourself. And so therefore that, this is what is talked about. So he says it's already broken because it has a history. And what is its history? Its history is not a mystery. It is made. It has a date of creation. So therefore there will be a date of what? Destruction. And another date of recreation. Meanwhile, this is just for recreational purposes. We can just sip the tea out of it. That's all. So this whole cycle is well known. So it is not personal. The master did not say that, "Yes, give me that, and don't give this to anybody else. This is mine." Nothing like that. He just saw it and he used the present as a way to teach. Pun intended. He used the present as the way to teach about the problem with personalizing things. So that is one way of personalizing. Everything is mine, and if it's not yet mine, I'm going to make it mine, and you can't come near it. This is a recipe for sorrow. It's a one ingredient recipe. These are very famous these days because nobody has the time. Everybody wants one ingredient or two ingredient recipes. 2 ingredients, let's say, because even to make rice and water is needed. So one wants simple things, So this is what it is. So this is even simpler than making rice because it's a one ingredient recipe whose outcome is sorrow. That's all. All you say is me, mine, finished. That's it. Immediately there is sorrow. Because even if that thing makes you happy, then you see in the hand of someone else a bigger and better and a more modern thing. Correct? Then your happiness is converted immediately to sorrow. Yeah. So then me is here, the personalizing it. That is one way of sorrow. And another way of personalizing is feeling always targeted. This is a problem. Somebody is saying something, somebody is not looking at me. Let them not look. No, but they are looking at me badly. Okay, just now you were saying they were not looking and you were sad. Now they are looking, still you are sad. Well, I told you they are not looking at me nicely. They are making faces and they are looking at me with suspicion. So this is that targeting, feeling targeted. Feeling like I am the karma, the second case of the entire Jagat. Yeah. I am the accusative case of the whole Jagat. I am the accused. See, that's why accusative case. A case in point. So, I am the accusative case. I am the karma of other kartas, of other people's, kartritvam. I become the accused of what? I become the object of other people's omissions and commissions. Real or perceived? It doesn't have to be real. Yeah, other people's omissions and commissions, I become the target. Either I think I'm the target or I'm really the target, doesn't matter. Or I feel like I'm the target. This is a big problem because this is personalizing the whole Jagat. Very difficult. Why did they do this? Why did they not do this? Yeah. So, as though that was not enough, the third way in which things get personalized is when I become the first case, the nominative case. When am I the nominative case? Huh? I am the doer, karta. First case is called karta, second case is called karma. Karma means accused. First case is accuser. So, there are three cases which are very dangerous. First, second and sixth. Okay? So, we've just discussed the sixth case, me, mine, correct? And in the second case, I have an order. I came from that side, because I wanted to end with a big bang, So, we did the sixth case, the genitive case. This belongs to me. Sorrow. Correct? Because anything that belongs to you, anything that is an object, is subject to what? Destruction. And when that thing gets destroyed, then you get shoka. First you get shoka, you get shocked. Then you get shoka. After the shock dissipates, the shoka becomes shoka. That's how we have the English word shock. It's a prerequisite of shoka. So then what happens? Then that sixth case finished, that we have dealt with completely. Then the second case, which is the accusative case, in which I am the object of other people's doings or non-doings, both omissions and commissions. Why did they do this? Why did they not do this? I was left out, I was not included. That is an omission. Oh, but whenever there is work, the same person complains the next day. Whenever there is work, they call me. This is what happens. So the second case means I am done in by other people's whole Jagat. I become the accusative case vis-a-vis the whole Jagat. Very sad, horrible, impossible situation. Oh my God. And as though that is not sufficient, then we slowly crawl back up to the first case, which is karta. Who is karta? The agent of action. The first case. The nominative case. Nominated for misery. That's why it's called nominative case. So here I have become now karta. And here also is personalizing what? My own actions. See, here is the sixth case and the first case going hand in hand. So I personalize my organs of actions and the actions that ensue from there. And because of this, I grieve, because I take everything I have done personally. Kimaham sadhu na karavam, kimaham papam karavam iti. Why didn't I do the correct thing? Why did I do this bad thing? Why, oh why? Why am I such an idiot? Why can't I understand? Why do I keep making mistakes? This is also straight away shoka without shoka. Straight away shoka. At least when somebody is accusing, there is a little bit of the headlight deer situation. Here, immediate shoka. So the whole life one is grumbling, mumbling and sad because I didn't do the right thing. Self-critical, self-judgmental, always upset. What to do with this person? Teach them this Vedanta. That's all. Teach them Kathopanishad. That's all you can say. filled with regret. Regret is nothing but sorrow. And then in the other case, in the accusative case, also filled with sorrow. Why? Because other people are not treating me correctly. So both are wrong. It's wrong means it's a false view of oneself. If I see myself as, the accusative case for the whole Jagat, this is a hyperbole at best. How can the whole Jagat be against one person? Tell me. It's not even possible. Not possible. It's a subjective vision of my own ignorance. I am eclipsed by my own ignorance. Therefore, I have this subjective vision of always being targeted. So then, if that is, impossible situation, this is just beyond imagination. Why? What is beyond imagination? To see myself as the agent of the entire Jagat. How is that possible? What is the truth? No, I am neither agent nor accused. That is what the whole thing is. And the Dhira knows this. Therefore, there is no Shoka. So there is, there is no meanness. There is Viveka, discerning the permanent and the impermanent. There is Vairagya. So the sixth case is gone. Me, mine, is reduced and eliminated. And then what? And then the second case is not there because it is not taken personally. The first case also is not there because the person does not see oneself as a doer. But what to do in the meantime? Until I become a Dhira, what should I do? Study. Well, that's boring. How much to study? I'm attending all the classes, they are coming out of my ears. Still, I shojami. Even then I'm having shoka. What should I do? Well, don't personalize in your life. Then that's easy to say. Then what should I do if I don't personalize? Ishwaraize. Ishwaraize. But how to Ishwaraize? Anything that bad that supposedly happens to you, when you are the accusative case for the entire Jagat, make it a point to see that it is all Ishvara, it is not you at all. So if you didn't get the job you deserve, Ishwaraize it. If you didn't get whatever goodies you thought you should, Ishwaraize. If somebody just did not say something that you should have, heard, that's okay. Say it to yourself. Give yourself a big hug and say what they didn't say. Say their script, on their behalf. You say it for yourself. When in doubt, Ishwaraize. When you feel accused, Ishwaraize. So then what should I do when I am the agent? Ishwaraize. That's called Karma Yoga. You bring in a proxy agent called Ishvara and then say you are the doer. I am just a nimitta. Nimitta at best, when nicely translated, means I am an excuse. You are the doer. Instrument, that's what. I am the instrument, you are the doer. I am just an excuse, you are the real doer. So, if I say you are the doer, then immediately I am also not the done in, because whatever comes as a result of the doing, I don't feel the accusative case. I don't feel accused. I don't feel targeted. So in the meanwhile, Ishwaraize. Bhashya. अशरीरं स्वेन रूपेण आकाशकल्पः आत्मा तम अशरीरम. So Svena Rupena, by its own self, or it's essentially, Svena Rupena means essentially by itself. Ayam Atma, this Atma, is Ashariram, without a body. But how do I even conceptualize that? Akasha Kalpaha. Imagine the space. Because you can't see space. Difficult to objectify space. So, Atma is also like this Akasha, that is Akasha Kalpaha, means imagine like even the space, like even the space seen from the standpoint of its own nature. Svena Rupena Akasha Kalpaha Ashariram, disembodied. Atmatam ashariram. It is disembodied as bodiless self. When? Sharireshu. Both are important. Essentially, it is disembodied when even Sharireshu, seventh case, even in the midst of all bodies, it retains its disembodied essential nature, like even space, in the midst of all, what are they called? Barricades, like walls, room space, lecture hall space, club space, cubicle space, head space, stomach space, in the midst of all these divisions, it retains its essential, what? Divisionless nature. In the same manner, this Atma, in the midst of all bodies, populating all bodies, retains its bodiless nature. Even though it blesses many bodies, itself is a no body. It doesn't have a body in that sense. So ashariram sharireshu. So svena rupena, by its own essential nature, it is like space. And then what? So just like the room space, hall space, corridor space, what? Cubicle space, bathroom space, closet space. We make a caricature out of space. We divide the divisionless space, and so too the Atma visits all these bodies, even though it's essentially disembodies. What bodies? Deva Pitra Manushadinam Sharireshu. So in the body of the celestial bodies, Yaksha body, full, even when the Yaksha snores, music comes out, very musical beings, Yaksha, Gandharva, Kinnara, musical celestials. Then you have the Karma Devas, and who serve the other devas, Chaiwala celestials. Then you have, other exalted celestials, Indra, Vayu, Agni. So all their bodies, this Atma populates, as it were. So Indra, Agni, Vayu are like hall space, warehouse space, Karma Devata, closet space. Same thing. Small versus big, bodies, or exalted bodies, Deva bodies, Pitru, ancestral bodies. If the ancestors are there sitting and blessing, even though they don't have a body like us, they have some kind of a body in their loka, Pitraloka. So that body also is because of the presence of Atma alone. And Manushya means what? Yours truly, this one with all bodily problems, because of Atma alone. And then what? Tiryak bodies, all weird bodies. Tiryak means what? Animals and other things, all things that grow in various shapes, sizes and orientation. So, Deva, where was I? Here. Deva Pitra Manushya Adi. Adi means Tiryak. He is too polite to bring that in here, but we have to say. Adi means tree. Adi means, coral. Coral is very interesting. That coral body, it has that neon capacity. It glows orange, blue, green. And then you go snorkeling, and then you say, oh, I'll just pick a little piece and bring it. You'll have to get your hand, go to emergency room immediately, because you touch it, it has certain, it cuts the hand. You cannot pick it and bring it home. Body of the coral, weird body. And then body of tree, and body of all these deep sea creatures, body of all these new dinosaurs that they are digging up now. There is one which is like an ostrich, the latest one, which had wings, but it only ran very fast with outstretched wings. Funny, like a plane always trying to take off but never getting off the ground. And it ran very fast because that wings gave it some speed even though it was not in the air. So like this Manushya Adi Padat, because of this Adi, from glowworm to non-glowing worm to all these things we have to see. So even though all these bodies are populated by the Atma alone, like space, Atma is free of the bodies. Just like the space is cut up by us according to our convenience, cubicle space, office space, big space, small space, here also Deva Sharira, Pitra Sharira, Manushya Sharira, Adi Sharira, etc. These divisions are there. So that is the Ashariram Sharireshu. Then he goes to the next line. Anavastheshu avasthita rahiteshu avasthitam nityam avikritam ityetat. Very straightforward. Anavastheshu means, avastha means, changing. Avasthatraya prakriya. Avasthatrayam. 3 avasthas means 3 states. So avastha means a state. Things that, a state is that in which you get into and get out of. Atma is stateless. When in the midst of all states, take even the sleeping dream and deep sleep right now. Even in that, Atma is there. Atma is unaffected by sleep. Atma doesn't sleep, you sleep. Atma is wide awake. And then you are awake, you are moving around, Atma simply is. And then what? You are dreaming, Atma is what? Sustaining the dream without becoming the dreamer, sustaining the content of the waker without becoming the waker, sustaining the state of the sleeper without becoming the sleeper. Neither dreamer nor sleeper nor waker Atma is, but in all these changing states, these changing states cannot exist without the presence of Atma. Another contradiction, paradox, and as though contradiction. And then ashariram sharireshu anavastheshu avasthiti rahiteshu avasthitam. Why? Because it is nityam. How can it do this? Because it is nityam, it is eternal, it is limitless, avikritam. So whenever the V plus kr to do, whenever the V comes, it means it's got a bad meaning. Vikaraha, badly modified. Vikriti. So here the feminine word of vikara, feminine version is used, vikriti. So same thing as vikara. So niyatam, and what is that? Avikritam. So the Atma has no vikara. And then what? Mahantam, mahatvasya apekshikatva shankayam. Apekshikatva shankayam means there being a doubt on what? On this mahatta, on the greatness. And what is the shanka? What is the doubt? That this greatness is relative. Apekshika shanka. Apekshika nityatvam. Like this. The word apekshika means a relative greatness. Because, it is great right now, but tomorrow there will be something greater. Or maybe there is something greater that I don't know even now. To ward that off, mahatvasya shankayam, apekshikatva shankayam, aha vibhum vyapinam atmanam. So vibhum means all pervasive, vyapin, all pervasive. So what? It is great, and it is, how great? It is all pervasive. So it is greater than the greatest that we have already seen. It's all pervasive, all the time, it is everywhere. And it is because it is everywhere that greatness is not subject to superlative and comparative degrees. The degrees of comparison are not there. It is just is, and it is great, and it is eternal and limitless, even in the face of all the finite things and the finite shapes, names and forms in the Jagat. And then he reminds us, Atmagrahanam swataha ananyatva pradarshanartham. he says that the word Atma, Grahanam, to catch, the grasping of the word Atma here, how should it be grasped? It is to be grasped as yourself. Don't say Atma is something somewhere that is in everyone and that is, outside of me. No. This Atma is nothing but myself alone, which is everything, everywhere, and is free of all attributes at the same time. So, Atma Grahanam, Swataha Ananyatva. Swataha means fifth case, from oneself. Ananyatva means non-separate from oneself. Pradarsanartham, it is to show the non-separateness from oneself. That's why it is called Atma. Pratyagatma Vishayah eva Mukhyastam Idrisham Atmanam. Okay, so Mukhyastam means predominantly. Predominantly Pratyagatma Vishayah eva. This topic is nothing but one's own, the innermost self of every body. So the Atma, the word is to show the non-distinction of Brahman from oneself. Brahman is not mentioned, but it has to be implied. So the word Atma predominantly means what? The inner self, the indwelling self of all. That's what it primarily means. So, Idrisham Atmanam Matva. Idrisham means in this manner, knowing Jnatva, knowing the Atma. How in this manner means, Ayam Aham Iti. This is nothing but myself. In this manner, when I identify totally with the Atma, when there is nothing other than the Atma, in this manner the identification becomes complete. Then what happens? The one who does it is called, the one who is capable of this identification is called Dhira, the wise person. Dhiman, na shochati. There is no grief. Why? Nahi, yasmat, because not indeed, evam vidhasya atmavidaha shoka upapattihi. So the grief for such a person is not tenable, is not possible. Why is it not possible? Because there is no, in his grammar, her grammar, there is no sixth case, second case or first case. That's all. There is no personalizing of anything. There is no feeling targeted or accused. And then what else is not there? Then finally, there is no feeling that I am the Karta, Jagat Karta. I am the Karta of the entire Jagat. I am the only agent and a grieving agent. So there is no grief. Thus saying, it stops at this thing. And then the next series series what? I think it's going to finish soon, this particular thing. It must be second last one. Then 2-3 things are there. The next 2-3 mantras are going to show the same kind of continued discussion of paradoxy, and then the seriousness of the pursuit. And the seriousness of the pursuit meaning, please don't teach this to people who are not deserving of this, who haven't asked. And then it concludes with a very quizzical mantra. We will all see that later. No rush. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I think in 1 hour, 6 o'clock, Kathopanishad. Meanwhile, here is something to tide people through.